Well, welcome. And like Naeem said, what we're going to do is today is going to be more of an overview session. But feel free to ask questions anytime you want. Just raise your hand. Doesn't mean I'll come to you right away. If I'm finishing a thought, I'll finish the thought and then come and take your question. But if you want to hold your questions to the end, feel free to do that as well. If you don't ask me questions, I will start asking you questions. So that's your choice, okay? The session on Thursday will be led by Soumya Ravi, and she is going to go into the details of SEO and SEM, including actual examples for you. And there she is. Let's give her a big welcome. So anyway, let me get started. So does anybody know these three products? What is the one on the left?
Oh, Nokia phone.
No.
Nokia.
No.
Rio.
Huh?
Rio.
Nope. Anybody?
Motorola.
Yeah? Getting closer?
The logos.
What is, if you can see it, there is an iTunes label on it, right? This was a Motorola Roker phone, which they started as a first reaction to creating an iPod. And obviously it failed, so nobody of us remember it, right? What is the product on the right? Has anybody used it?
No, I saw it.
Okay. And what is the one in the middle?
Halloween costume.
Somebody said Halloween costumes.
Yes. No, it is not. You see this dog there? It was called Bob. This was by Microsoft, where they tried to create a very helping DOS, and they messed it up royally. So what is common between these three products is that these were the three biggest failures of our industry. And the marketing dollars that were spent on them were enormous. Despite all that, they failed. So bottom line is, don't try to put a cute message on something that is not designed well, because it is still going to fail. So marketing is not a panacea for bad products. Advertising is not a panacea for bad products. You may get one customer, maybe get two customers, and in the world of social media, they'll spread it everywhere so fast, you will never have another product in your life. So obviously this class is not meant for how to do good products, but something of a caveat that I want to leave you with. If you don't have a good product, your marketing will always fail. Okay, now contrary to what Naeem said, selling hasn't changed. From the times of 1900s to today, selling hasn't really changed. Selling is still a process. If you look in the back, that is a full service store. You know, some of you can relate to it back home, where somebody will give you a full service, right? Then it became a self-service, and now we are using our computers or your phones to do what we call e-commerce. So the selling process has really not changed. It is the medium that has changed. And that is why we have to change our tactics. And we're going to talk about what tactics there are and what needs to change. So the other thing that is important, sales and marketing, which used to be two different fields, and there was always a tension between sales and marketing. In good organization these days, they are generally one. In fact, a lot of times, if sales and marketing don't work hand in hand, it's a disaster for the company, and you can actually see it. So it is really important that you start thinking of these two functions not as two distinct functions, but as one function, because that's how your customers look at it today. So how do we do that? Okay, how many of you have seen a sales funnel in your life? Right? So in selling, this funnel, you'll find about 500 forms of this. If you Google a funnel, sales funnel, you will come up with thousands of options. But at the end of the day, there is a very simple method to this madness, which is at the top of the funnel are your suspects. A lot of time we call it leads. They're not leads. They're only suspects at this point. I don't even know who they are. They just came to my site. Or I just got a list and sent them an email and they responded back, right? I don't know yet. But every marketing program starts with the top of the funnel. Because if you have nothing in the top of the funnel, you're not going to go at the bottom of the funnel. Because ultimately, sales process is about how to bring people into the top of the funnel and close them as fast as possible. So the next, I like to call these walls. Every time you have something, there are walls in your way that you have to cross as a sales and marketing person. So the very first wall I want to cross is qualification wall. Meaning I want to know, is this suspect even my possibility for me to be a prospect or not? If he or she is not, I don't want to care. It doesn't help me. Think of a sales process when you go into a retail store. The salesperson, if he or she is a smart person, will ask you some leading questions to figure out if you are indeed a prospect or not. They qualify you. We're going to do the same thing electronically because now computer is our salesperson. So we're going to figure out how do we let the computer do the same work that was being done by humans. Right? So that's really the role of doing digital marketing correctly. And once they become a prospect, you know that there are many people, some people will come into a store and buy instantly. But that's not generally the case. There are many people who go to the mall, who go to the same store multiple times, they'll go to multiple stores, they'll figure out what to buy. They may not even have the budget yet, so they're figuring it out, how much should I save? Or maybe I want to tell my parents to give it to me for Christmas, so therefore I want to know what is it that I want, right? So there is a process in which you want to continue to engage with them because the time they're ready to buy, if you did not engage, they'll forget about you. Out of sight, out of mind. So therefore, what we call this is a nurturing campaign. Once I have crossed the wall for you in terms of you having qualified me, I need to figure out what kind of message should I send you to make you my prospect. And once you're my prospect, now I need to do nurturing campaign on you so that I can bring you to cross and make you a customer. In order to make you a customer, I need to cross what I call a follow-up wall. Like if I don't hear from you one time, you come to my site and I never actually engage with you ever again, I'm going to forget about you, right? So we're going to figure out how do we cross this follow-up wall. Now, many people stop after somebody has become a customer and they say, victory, let's go home, not worry about it, let's go to the top of the funnel, let's bring the next customer in. That's the worst thing you can do, especially as a startup. Why? Because until and unless you can make these customers as your references, you really haven't succeeded in your early customer wins. Why is that important? Because people would buy more if I tell my friend that this is a good product versus you telling me that it is a good product. As soon as I, as a product company, tell you it's a good product, I'm biased. Even if I may be 100% correct, you will not believe me instantly. But if a third person says, I actually used it and I love it, guess what? Things change. Now, in case of a B2B, we call that building a success story, or a customer being able to be willing to be a reference to the next customer, and so on and so forth. While in a B2C, even if the person says on the social media something, that's of big value to us that we can leverage as well. So there are various ways to get the love of the customer. So now, before we go and decide what tools we use, what other things we have to use, let's understand the sales process. Because depending on what your product is, you will have to have a different sales process. So if you're selling a $2 product versus if you're selling a $2,000 product, you're going to have a very different way in how you approach and what your expectations are, right? So let's assume, so these are some basic rules. They're not law by any chance, but it so happens that in general, if your product costs, and I'm assuming most of you are from the software industry, so you all know what a SaaS is, right? Right? Everybody knows what a SaaS is, right? Anybody not know what a SaaS is? Okay, good. Because if you don't, then this class may not be for you. But so you're going to sell something on a monthly basis, i.e. MRR, monthly recurring revenue. And so generally the rule of thumb is if your product is less than $500, you really want to make sure you don't touch the customer. Meaning you don't want to call them, you don't want to, send them a lot of, stuff on their way because it costs money. Once they come to your site, you want to figure out a way to convert them if they're qualified. It doesn't happen in reality like that fast, but the point is you want to come to a stage where they can click their card as opposed to always talking to somebody. Now, I know that a lot of companies, even in the early phases, they probably even have people visiting for $500 a sale, which is okay. The beginning customer is not what we're talking about. For a beginning customer, you're going to do every artificial stuff in the book that is not here because you want to get them. You want to make them references. This is how do you grow? How do you go to the next stage? You got the beginning customer, but how do you scale? You can't scale the same way that you got the beginning customer, otherwise you will go bankrupt. You'll never make money. So if you're doing, the rule of thumb is if you're doing less than $500 a month, you should probably be willing to, do just e-commerce. Which means you're still going to spend money to acquire them. The rule of thumb is you spend between 3 to 6 months of your revenue at the minimum to acquire them. So that is gone as soon as you got them, basically. That's your customer acquisition cost. Now, if you're making between $500 and $1,000 or more, you can probably use telesales. And in today's world, by the way, nobody does one thing pure, meaning you only not do just one versus not the other. People mix and match things as they work because you may have a product that starts at $10 but goes up to $5,000, but for $10 you only want to self-serve, but for a $5,000 you probably want to talk to them, right?
So this is the product cost, right? Or sorry, the selling price.
This is your selling price. This is your average selling price.
Yeah, average.
Now let me clarify that for some people who may not have gotten it. So let's assume your average, you sell a product and on an average, minimum 10 users buy it. The company buys it minimum for 10 users. And your product cost is $50. Now your average selling price now is $500, right? So which means you are now going to design your plan according to that. Now it is possible that the customer always want to start with 1 or 2 users. Now you need to figure out how much money am I going to waste on them at what time. And so you have to have a different strategy in place, right? Now if on the other hand, you charge a customer more than $5,000 a month, you can actually afford to have a salesperson even visit the customer sometimes and call on them, because tell you what, if a customer is paying you 60 grand for the year, they really want to see somebody face to face. They may not believe that they can do that sale on the phone. Now, again, there are people who sell these products at that price also. Depends on the size of the company. I'm talking about when you are small, when people don't know who you are, right? Because companies like Oracle and Microsoft and others, they probably sell without people sometimes product at $10,000 a month too, but that's different. So don't start looking at companies which are 5-10 years into existence and think their model is necessarily your model. Think of what they were 5-10 years ago and then see what model really worked, okay? Now, the price of 1,000 to 5,000 is kind of considered a no man's land, because if your customer expects you to show up in person, you can't afford it. And so you kind of stay in this no man's land trying to figure out what's the best selling strategy, what is not. So, there are other techniques people use, but the point is it's not very clear cut as to what's the best point of that. So having done that, let's figure out, I'll give you a couple of examples of some sites, and then we'll tell you why that is important. So can everybody read this site? Yeah. It says online accounting software for small business. Try zero free for 30 days. Try every feature, unlimited users, no obligation, easy conversion when you're ready. Try zero for free, buy now. What do you think this site is trying to do? Anybody?
Freemium.
What is this site? What is the purpose of this site?
They're selling accounting software.
Their purpose is to sell you something, right? This site is designed for selling. They don't want to talk to you. They're not interested in talking to you. That means their price is lower. So their site has to be the salesperson. They have to design everything in their site to be a salesperson. Is the message clear? Does it tell you exactly what they do? Yeah. Right? No confusion, right? Does it tell you who it is for? Right. Now, does it tell you why they're different?
Yes, unlimited users, risk-free, try it out.
There is a Y zero on the top.
Hmm?
There is a Y on the top.
No, but I don't want to do this, right? So let me tell you why that is important, why I said it. 95% of the people don't spend more than 5 seconds on your site. In fact, there is a term called above the fold. Everybody has probably heard it, right? When you look at your website, you look in this small screen of 13-inch or your smartphone. If I can't get you the message in that first shot that you saw, you are gone. So every website's rule, in my mind, is the 3 W's it has to do. It has to tell you what does the company do, who is this for, and why this company. If your message does not communicate these 3 things very clearly, you will struggle in your selling no matter how much investment you make in anything else. And surprisingly, I find some of the biggest companies have this problem as well. In fact, I did a blog about a couple of months ago where I looked at the top 10 Silicon Valley, 150 companies that Mercury News rates. And the worst one was Apple iPad, and Watch. They were so confused, they didn't know who they were selling to. So, doesn't mean a big company means they always do it right. And you know that those 2 products are in trouble. There is a reason for it. Okay? Okay, tell me, what is this site trying to do? So I've taken the bottom of this site and I've taken the top of it. Can somebody tell me what this company does? It says world leader in marketing automation for companies of any size. You have ambitions, we have solutions. Drive engagement with #1 marketing automation platform, see products. Watch a 4-minute demo, ready to talk. What do you think this site is trying to do?
They're willing to talk to you. They're willing to address your problem.
And they are expensive. They have to be, otherwise they wouldn't be telling you, I want to talk to you. Very simple. Nobody wants to talk to you for a $5 to $10 product. Be very clear. Do you know what they do by looking at their site? Are you clear what do they do?
They do marketing automation, but still marketing itself is a huge, vast subject. So
But if we have seen some other marketing automation platform, then we can imagine what this is.
yeah.
Okay, who is their customer?
Enterprise, but they don't say that.
Companies of any size.
It's expensive, so large companies.
No, but do you see it from the message?
Companies of any size, so. that
Where does it
makes
say? Okay, they say any size, okay. And why them?
It seems like they're not very focused. They're saying that anybody and everybody is welcome.
Yes,
Which is not right.
which is not really true, but
Yeah.
you're right. Their marketing department, considering they are a marketing company, they couldn't figure out their own message correctly.
They also say they are the #1 marketing automation platform. It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything to somebody who's not in the market.
Correct.
But they may have done it intentionally because they don't want the riffraff. If you don't know who they are, they don't want you to stay on their site and waste time. It could be very intentional. Because if you think about it, a lot of times I want to visit, if I have a store, I want you to come in the windows and do window shopping, but there are many times I don't even want you to come in my windows, right? Have you ever seen a jewelry store in the evening? What is special about the jewelry store in the evening? Nothing visible. They don't want you to do window shopping at that time. They don't want you to look. So it could be that their marketing department thought, I don't want that. I only want to focus on people who understand marketing automation, who know me as a company in the space, and therefore they will stay. Now, I don't know whether that is true or not, but that's what I concluded maybe the marketing guy was thinking, or gal. Okay, what is this site trying to do? Anybody? This is a Colgate Palmolive. It says world of something, and then each day 38,000 employees of Colgate share a commitment to blah blah, and this is their menu.
Well, they're trying to say that
But they're not
they have
selling.
safe and effective products, that's what it's all.
I think it's misleading because
They're
they're
not
giving
selling
a
on the
picture of a
website.
child.
They are not selling on the website. They don't want you to come to their website to buy anything. They're only just using it as a brand building exercise in case, it's like I'm in the business today, so I have to have a website. Even though their website focus is our company, our culture, brands, investors, jobs, contact us.
They're selling jobs.
No, a lot of people come looking for jobs and they want to go to their website. That's the first thing they do. So they want to position to those guys, look, my company is such and such, I have a great culture, and I have so many brands, and look at it. The brands menu doesn't even go to that sub-level. They're not interested in selling you anything. So the point I wanted to make to you is, not everybody has the same goal for a site. So you have to figure out what your goal is, and then you design your site appropriately. You have to figure out who your customer is. If you don't, your message will be wrong. And you have to make sure, there are many sites where they use a lot of buzzwords. And an average Joe hates it. But you know what? That's one way of figuring it out if I want you to stay or not in my site. Because otherwise I'll have to explain you too much and you're never going to buy from me. So I don't want to worry about you, which is fine. It's not a bad marketing. So that's something really important. But if you don't tell me quickly enough what business you are in and who your target is, shame on you as a marketer. And 95% of the marketing sites you go in, you can't figure out what the hell they do. So fix that first, please. Okay, so I think we just get this message, whether your site is meant for selling, whether it is meant for doing lead gen, whether it's a combination of doing selling and lead gen, whether it is to build or reinforce your brand, or it's just some information dissemination. So you are going to act differently depending on what the purpose of the site is, how your site is going to be laid out, what kind of sessions you're going to have on the site. So all of these are going to vary. So what is marketing? It is still an art and a science. Now, the pendulum used to be, it was 80% art, 20% science, because there was no data to prove. Today I have so much data, so now it is probably 80% science and 20% art. But still there is a mix of art. Right? You have to know how to do a copy. No matter how many bad copies you test, you're going to get bad results. Just because I can test everything doesn't mean I'm a good marketer. I have to figure out what minimum set to test so that my testing is limited and giving me the right results. So what is the goal of marketing? It hasn't changed. It's to attract, acquire, retain customers, but do it profitably. And digital marketing is really the first time that you could actually look at that data. So the difference between the traditional marketing and digital marketing really is about, I can now get the data. I can do the testing to figure out between A versus B. In the past, I didn't have a choice, right? If I wanted to put an ad in newspaper, I didn't have a choice. I just gave the ad and wait for it to do something. Today I can put up an ad on Google in 30 seconds and it can change automatically to something else. And I can test both of them by the end of the day and say, this one works, this one doesn't work. So if in marketing of today, you don't do any testing, you should not, anything you cannot test, don't do it. Because that's a waste of money. All right. So there are three things that are important in digital marketing. This slide may be difficult to read, but I'll try it. So one side is assets. These are the digital assets that you have to build. In the middle are tactics. And then on the right are different measurements and tools that we will talk about a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about some tactics, so let's talk about different assets. So, website is one of the big assets for any company in the SaaS business, for sure. Social sites, we'll talk about that in a minute. Mobile app may or may not be needed in your business. Content, obviously, is king, especially in B2B, and we'll talk more about different kinds of content that people create. Most of it you probably know. Your customer database is your asset, if you have one. And earned coverage, where you don't actually pay for it directly, even though you pay indirectly. Your people, your reviews, they're all your assets, right? And various tactics we'll talk about all the way from SEO, SCM to others. What we will not talk about is we're not going to talk about affiliate marketing at all. And SEO and ads, PPC, display, remarketing, all of that Soumya is going to cover in detail on Thursday. So I may just touch on them, but I won't spend any time on it. And then we'll talk a little bit about some measurement tools, and some of that she's also going to cover as well. So that's what we're going to go into the next step. Any questions so far?
How about telephone? When people make phone calls and they
Oh, absolutely. It's a great asset. But, you know, it's people, right? So that's why I said people are the assets. Telephone is not the asset. It's just a tool. And we will talk about how to use that. Okay. So let's first talk about some of your assets. Website. The first thing we talked about is the 3 W's you have to have, right? Who is your customer? What do you do, or what problem, a new habit, whatever your business is, right? And why are you best at it, and why now? So if you can answer these questions, and believe it, you have to answer it in a very simple sentence and an image that is behind it. So many a times what I find is that a lot of startups tend to choose images which are totally unrelated. They don't communicate anything. They're a mere distraction. Don't put it. Why are you distracting your customers? Oh, they like to show this beach somewhere in some place and they're selling the most boring product in the world and they think somehow it will become interesting. No, you're going to get the wrong person. And you're going to waste your time and their time. So make sure that your background image also makes sense. It shouldn't be totally senseless. And these days, it's so easy to find free photography or image or whatever you want to find. There are hundreds and thousands of ways to do it. So there is no excuse for not doing it. Even if you have no money, you can find it for free, right? And so the second part is it has to meet its intended purpose, right? Whether it is for selling, whether it is for lead generation, whatever, brand building, you got to make sure that your site reflects that somehow. So question is, how do I learn that? So go in your industry, look at 2 or 3 or 4 successful companies whose business models are similar to yours. Not only look at what they're doing today, but go back and look at their sites before. I forget. Does anybody remember the place where you can look at the web history? I think it is. Yeah, webarchive.org.
What is it?
Webarchive.org. So you can go in there and say, show me so-and-so company website last year. And it may show you what it looked like. You'll be amazed at some successful companies that you look at today and you go, wow, this is amazing. And you start copying them and then you go look at what they used to do a year ago and they had one very simple message, but it was so good. So one of the things, how many people here are engineers? Okay, good. So we all have a thing, what I call an engineering disease. Whenever something doesn't work, what's our solution? We add more features. What should it be? Totally opposite. You should figure out what is that one thing you can hang your hat on that nobody else does as well as you do. And if you can just sell me on that, you will succeed. But the engineer in you wants to tell about all the 11 features that you spend midnight oil developing that nobody uses it, but you want to put it on the website. I can see most of the time when I look at a website whether it was designed by an engineer or by a marketing person. I'm guilty as charged because I also was an engineer. So resist that temptation. Figure out what is it that is unique about you. And when you are young, try to not sell too many features because that's what will get you farther. Once you grow, you can add more features because people will know who you are. If you look at a very classical example, when iPod was introduced, there were no features except one feature they advertised. What was that? Anybody know?
Wrong button. Wrong button.
No, but what was their message? They had only one message.
10,000 songs.
1,000 songs in your pocket. That's it. And only thing it did was that. There was no fancy stuff, nothing existed, right? Slowly they started adding features and features and features and now, because people are already used to it now. Now you're expecting more things and then they ran out of features, they started doing colors. But if you started like that, the classical mistake that Apple did with the watch, that's what happens, right? What mistake did they do with watch? How many versions of watch are there? How many SKUs are there for a watch? Does anybody know? iWatch? How many SKUs exist?
Too many.
Just for the band.
Just for the band alone, there are 25.
Yeah.
So what happens? Customer is always confused. They are trying to sell the bands, they're trying to sell the shapes, they're trying to sell all this crap, and the core message is lost. First you build a demand. This was the Apple message that they forgot. Because that's what Steve Jobs was master at. And he always could say, this is what I'm going to hang my hat on for this product. Today, Apple can't figure that out. Classical example is watch. Look at an iPad message. They can't figure out it's a computer or is it a tablet. It's a product ready to fail. A lot of it will be their fault. Okay. The other thing that a lot of startups tend to do is they hire somebody in India and they also let them do copy. Indians don't know how to write good copy, guys. I'm sorry, I am one of them, but we've been here too long, so I think we've learned what is good, what is bad. But in general, people in India, there is a mistake in the grammar, mistake in spelling, they say, oh, chalta hai. No, it doesn't. If your website has spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes, I'm not going to take you seriously. I'm not going to do business with you. I'm not going to click my credit card with you because suddenly I don't have a confidence in you. If you can't do this, how can you develop a product? You will have so many bugs in the product if you can't do a simple website. So try using tools like Grammarly or something like that if you want, but make sure don't have any mistakes. Okay? And not only on your website, even in all of your communications. When you send an email, install something so that you can figure out what you're doing wrong when you start doing communication with your customers. Amongst yourself is okay. Okay? The other thing that is important is, does your website work on all devices? And many people think it does, but they never test it. So when I try to doing it, they're not mobile-friendly sites. They don't appear very well on the smartphone. Because believe it or not, more than 50% of the people are ever going to see your website on a smartphone. And if you have a font of like 2 or 3 or 4, which people do, and I can't read it on the phone, I'm gone. That's it, history. So think of you as a customer in that site and say, how do I make sure of that? Okay? The other thing, which is, there are a lot of stats on it, that if your site doesn't load fast, I'm gone. Instantly. Nobody waits these days. People are very impatient. Now, if your customers happen to be in a developing country a lot, where they have a slow connection, it's not their fault. It is your fault that your site is slow, because you didn't figure it out. They are a little bit more patient, but not that patient. So you need to figure that out, who your customers are, where they are, what kind of a network they're going to be on. If you load heavy images and don't compress them, you're going to have a problem, for example. You load it on a cheap $5 shared account, you're only going to get that kind of a performance. Sometimes it's worth spending that $90 a month. So you got to decide, if your business is selling on the web and your website sucks, you're not going to do any business. And if you're not willing to spend $90 to $100 to host it at a good place, shame on you. It won't work. The other thing that I find, most of the engineers tend to start doing their website in HTML. And then they hire a marketing guy. Now the marketing guy cannot do anything. So every time, the engineer who is actually doing development now also becomes a website developer. Bad business. So instead, do some investment. Go to some standard CMS, like a WordPress or whatever. Because if you do that, you can have as many people as you add in your staff on the marketing and sales side. It'll be easy enough for them to work the site, because it's not that hard at that point. So make the right decisions for your business, okay? Any questions before we go to the next topic?
Yeah, so primarily a website these days is the product.
For a lot of companies, yes.
And unless you're selling something offline, or you're a big company with branding, right? So really, a WordPress or something, is that adequate for a company? If your product is also built right behind the...
No, but your product is behind a login prompt. You're not exposing your product on WordPress. You're only giving it to your customer who logged in, right? So what does it take to take them to a different site at that point? Not that hard. See, your website is still for information. At the end of the day, it is your information pipe, right? How you get people to come in. Once they've logged in, then you're taking them wherever you want to take them. And if you do your website, I'll tell you one very good story. So I was working with a company which had a mobile app. And we saw that we had a lot of people who will come and sign up, and then there will be drop-offs. So we couldn't figure it out. So we finally put the analytics in it, which, engineers say, oh, that's the last product, we'll think about it later. Bad mistake, right? You have to put analytics from day one. Like I said, if you can't measure something, don't do it. So we put the analytics in, and we went and talked to 5 users. What they told us versus what the analytics told us was not exactly 100%. So we were at least able to figure out by talking to these people and looking at the data as to why people were dropping off. What might have been the cause. The users, when we talked to them, they were not able to tell you exactly why they were dropping off, because they had already passed that. They couldn't really say it. And also when you meet people in a group, they lie, because they see what the other guy said. But data never lies. Data is dumb, but always speaks the truth. So we were able to know from the data what exactly is the truth. And so that's why when you develop an app, make an investment of putting analytics in it from day one. You will learn a lot about your customer, about their behavior, and you will be able to build a better product. Yeah.
So, for us, our deal size is somewhere around, $8,000 to $20,000 for every customer.
Uh-huh.
So mostly, and somewhere around 19 customers, but most of these customers has been, calling, hustling, and closing them, right? So the cold calling approach, the inside sales approach is working for us. Like each SDR, 80 calls, 2 demos,
Got it.
25% close around that. And for us, everything is an opportunity cost, right? If we are taking the focus of the calling and putting up, we'll have to drop off some focus on calling to website, doing onto this marketing. So where do you think is that tipping point or the inflection point where we should really start investing into the website?
So in the beginning, you will do anything to get your sale, right? That's not what you're building your company for.
Sure.
In the beginning, you are getting customers to get your product market fit. Once you have your product market fit, your next job is to figure out, how do I automate my sales and marketing process so that I spend the least amount of money to close these sales? And if you think you've already gotten that by your telesales, you don't need to change it. You don't need to follow others, because for every business it is different, right? Don't just do it because somebody else said it, because you may have found a way whereby your telesales guys are in India, they're really good, or in Philippines, and they cost really, really low, and they're able to give you, some SQLs, 5 SQLs a day that can be closed. Then, yeah, go for it.
We have never tried this.
Well, again, like I said, that's why you have to figure out, how do I automate my process? Because you're not automating your process necessarily today. Yeah.
Actually, one of the things you could do, which would also fit in very well with the search marketing idea, is
No, they are recording it, so you have to speak in the mic.
one of the things you could try is actually voice search is now gone up in its value for Google as well. So you could try web bots, chat bots, and use them to attract people to your website, have conversations with them before. So instead of sending 80 people to your sales representatives, you could send the top 10, top 15. So they're not making 80 calls and eliminating them and picking 8 out of them. They're making 10 calls and picking 8 out.
Yeah. I think you need to calculate your customer acquisition cost. And if you are spending, let's say, 3 to 6 months of your revenue getting customer acquisition cost, and you could bring it down by a month's revenue, you will win in the end.
Our CAC is lower than,
No, whatever it is, I don't want to get into that, but I just want to make sure, and we'll come back to that again. So we can talk offline more about it.
Oh,
Yeah.
will you add chatbot in this list? Will you add chatbot in this list?
Will I add what?
Chatbot.
Chatbot.
That's kind of a new way of people who are starting to look at that. I mean, mobile is another one. So, but do I need today? Is there an expectation of a chatbot? Not unless I'm in that business.
So what is it?
But I could be unique, which will get people to stop over. But would I get curious onlookers or my customer? I don't know. You got to figure it out. Because curious onlooker will only waste your time.
What is chatbot?
Soumya will tell you on Thursday, so you have to come on Thursday. Okay. So let's. So I'm sure most of these everybody knows, right? So I thought I'll plot it kind of on a B2B to B2C scale. So the one on the left. So which one is the yellow one? Everybody knows that? It's not for anybody in this room, it looks like, right? Who is in the millennium age group? Raise your hands. How many of you have Snapchat? All right, only 2 young people here. Soumya, you don't count. You're a marketing person. You have to go look at everywhere what is happening, but you don't use any of them. And then what is underneath the Snapchat? And then what is underneath that? How many of you have a Pinterest account? Okay, 2 men. That is very strange because I don't see any men going there. So great. I'm sure you're a minority on the Pinterest. But why do people go to Pinterest? What do you look for on Pinterest most of the time? If you are looking for business, what would you be looking for on the business side?
For business. Usually I'm looking for design ideas.
Design ideas, okay, that's one idea. What else people go to Pinterest for? Huh?
Infographics.
Infographics. They're the master of infographics. If you want to look at an infographic, you got to go search in Pinterest, right? Because that's what, it's beautiful graphics there, right? What about the Facebook? How many of you don't have a Facebook account? Good job. How many of you don't go to Facebook regularly? How many of you have checked Facebook since you've been in this room? That's it? Gosh, Facebook is in trouble. But Facebook used to be kind of exclusively as a B2C network, but Soumya told me that no, a lot of our B2B customers are also benefiting from Facebook. And she'll tell you more about it on Thursday. But it is important to understand what each network is, what their users are. So if you don't know what their users are and what target you have, you will do a mistake of either spraying everywhere. You will have a presence everywhere, but nowhere a good presence. Instead, figure out what are the 1 or 2 or 3 networks you want to have a presence on initially. Because when you are small, the last thing you want to do is be on everywhere. You know, when you do your website developer will tell you, oh, there is this easy thing, I can add a widget to you where it'll give you all 10 networks. Guess what? That's a disaster in the waiting. Because if you cannot do a good job with that network, don't go there. I see so many people who have a great website and their LinkedIn page sucks with like 2 lines. And their customers are all B2B. That's a bad thing to do. Why do you even want to be on LinkedIn? So if your customers are on B2B network and you're going to have a LinkedIn presence, make sure it tells you what the company does. Right? So the idea is these are your websites, but in different forums. So think of LinkedIn as a website, Facebook as a website, Quora as your website, and we'll talk about Quora in a minute. And all of these, Pinterest is to some extent your website too. So you need to figure out where you want to engage and where you're going to put your efforts in. In whichever network you choose, you're going to put your efforts in. Make sure you invest enough there, right? How many of you go to Twitter regularly? Oh my God, nobody even goes to watch Trump's tweets?
We get them in some other way.
I see that on
We
Facebook.
anyway get them.
How many go to YouTube every day?
Go where?
YouTube.
YouTube.
So again, YouTube used to be a B2C medium, not anymore. There is so much B2B material on YouTube. And so you need to figure out how you're going to be found on there, if you want to be found there or not, right? And one of the things that a lot of companies do, and I personally hate it, but companies still tend to do it, they won't invest in having their own hosting site for the video. Like they won't go and pay money to Vimeo or Wistia or anything. They instead just put it on YouTube. And guess what happens when your video finishes?
Yeah.
It gives you 6 other videos that Google thought you should watch, which means you became a bulletin board for Google from now on. So you save $20, but you give your users to Google. If that's what you want to do, continue to do that. Instead, use it only as a lead in. Don't give your lead to Google.
How do you do that?
You can still post it on YouTube, but not on your site.
Oh, I see.
On your site, invest in Vimeo or Wistia or something like that. You pay them $20 a month, but at least the thing plays on your site. I mean, it plays on their site, but in an iframe from yours. And they don't give you 6 more videos that you might want to watch.
Some of maybe the competitors.
Who knows? Google is going to put whatever their algorithm tells them, right? There's, their algorithm said, oh, you're watching a CRM video, so therefore I'm going to give you all the 6 CRM highest rated videos, which are all your competitors. So they'll do you a lot of favor. Nothing is for free, buddy. That's the moral of the story, right? How many of you go regularly on Quora? How many know what Quora is? Anybody?
I don't,
Yeah?
I don't know.
Okay. Let's see what she says.
So it's a site where people post questions, and there are other people who are interested in those questions come and
It's a Q&A site. In short, it's a Q&A site, but interestingly, most people who answer there like to write essays.
I was going to say too much
It's
time.
kind of like
A
the
lot of
new,
video.
wiki.
Why? Because most of the people who are answering questions are either the vendors or the consultants who are trying to get business.
So it's like business wiki.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Like there used to be Yahoo Answers, right? So it's kind of like Yahoo Answers, but for a little bit more sophisticated. However, it has become a great source of leads for a lot of the companies in the B2B business. But you have to know how to make it as a lead source. So it seems like people love that long content when they read. They don't know who has written it, so they end up clicking all those links. And
some of the people who post those answers or anything, it gives them a little bit about who they are, but there is no verification of who those people really are. It just depends on what they put themselves as.
no, they do verify your LinkedIn sometimes.
But LinkedIn doesn't verify who you are.
That's true as well. There are many
I
fake
could
profiles
be
on LinkedIn.
I could be a CEO of some company that never existed.
Yeah, so long as nobody else complains, LinkedIn is fine. And this happens a lot. In fact, there are people who will give you any number of fake LinkedIn accounts, fake Facebook accounts, fake Twitter accounts. I would say not engage in it. It'll be better for you, but people do this all the time. And okay, so the moral of the story, I wanted you to understand it is when you've done your website, your job isn't finished because your users may be hanging in other places. In order to reach them, you got to know where they are hanging, what social network they hang, where do they engage in. So when you do your content, you got to make sure each of those networks require a certain content, so you have to play according to their rules. and you have to have your presence there. But don't increase your presence on multiple networks if you can't support them, because you'll only get bad.
No question.
Yeah,
How about something like blogging?
coming to that.
Okay.
So like I said, content is king, right? And I think everybody knows what a blog is, right? The question comes is, okay, what's the typical length of a blog? They say generally less than 1,000 words. You start to write a very long form of blog, you're basically wasting your resources. And typically, for product companies, they say once a week, blogging is considered appropriate, but if you are very focused on new markets where you have to educate people a lot, people do 2-3 times a week as well, or more. But the key to blogging is frequency. You can't, if you are a company, you cannot say, I'm going to do, 5 blogs in this week, and next week I'm not going to do it at all, and the following week I may just do something, and then I may not do it at all. If you have noticed, we all have this habit. Whenever I go to a company's website, I'm trying to see what's the activity level. How do I know this company is in business? So what pages do you guys see? Anybody? News, because news has a date, right? So I can see, oh, there was no news on them for 3 months. Okay, are they alive? Now where do I go next? Where would you go next? Blog, because that also has a date. So bottom line is, you are blogging sometimes to let somebody know you still have a heartbeat. Your company hasn't died. People want to know, are you in business or not? Are you active or not? And you can generally know when a company is dying or has almost died, those activities stop. Right? Now, my friend Soumya tells me that blogs don't do for SEO what they used to do. A lot of people used to do blogs just for SEO purposes. And she's right, Google only gives you credit for your blogs maybe for what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Not even?
No, so it's archived after 90 days. 90 days.
Okay, so 3 months. Anything after 3 months is gone. So if you're going to do a long blog, don't call it a blog, unless you are a blogging site. Everybody knows what white paper is, right? So generally, white paper is kind of designed for companies which are selling a product that is a little bit more complex, that they feel the need to educate the market on it. And it helps to sort of do this education. Now, there is a technique to writing a white paper. By the way, before anything, what are 2 constituents you write any content for? Customer and what else? Google. Seriously. Every piece of content you write has to be in line with the Google robots. So you have to know the keywords you are going to write for which you need to be discovered. You have to write for your users as well. But if you only write for your users, they will never discover it, because Google decides who is going to be discovered. Why? Because after the first page, 95% of us never go to page 2 to find anything. But there is no guarantee you'll appear on page 1, by the way, and that's what Soumya is going to tell you next week, on Thursday. And I'll not steal her thunder, I'll let her talk about it. But generally, white papers, you don't do that many white papers. The general frequency of companies has been like once a quarter. It's about 5 to 10 pages long with some images and makes it look a little pleasant, and it's an HTML doc. And then the next one is an ebook, which is kind of similar. It's a little bit longer, and you don't do that many ebooks. Now, when you put this content up on your site, an ebook and a white paper, what are you expecting from it? Do you just give it away, or do you put what I call a qualification wall? Sometimes, for some companies, it works best to capture an email address because of this, if it is indeed a good quality content. If it's a shitty content and I've given you my address, next time you send me an email, I'm going to unsubscribe immediately. So, but it is a good way to get the email address. I have seen a lot of people go to the other extreme, saying, they get greedy. They just don't want your email address. They want your life history in the web form. And 90% of those entries, everybody lies. Only thing that they can control is email, because they can send me the link via email. So them asking everything else is useless, at least at that stage, because you haven't given me anything. Why are you asking me so much? And then they put an asterisk on every field. So the name is A, first name is A, last name is B, company name is C, my title is D, and my phone number, which you can never reach, and there's the email. But they don't learn. Because ultimately, what you want to do, you want to establish communication with this customer, and that's the only way you can, is just ask them for an email address that they're willing to give yet. So the point is, don't ask customer all the information right away. It's like having, the golden goose. Let me get all of it now, and ultimately you don't get anything, right? You know what infographics are, right? Here is an example of one on the right. And infographics, so generally, why do people do infographics? Because the content in infographic is not any different than, 4 bullets I can write on a piece of paper. But why do people do it?
It's visually easier to compare and look at data.
There's another reason. As a marketer, I do it for a very different reason. What is it?
It draws the audience in.
Yeah, but what else?
It breaks up the concept.
No.
It makes them look less smart.
People love to share the graphics. The infographics are the highest shared items.
Oh, I see.
This is why you find all of them, the dead bodies on Pinterest, because it got shared, right? Social sharing is biggest of infographics, and that's why people do too many infographics. Okay? Videos. How many of you watch a video which looks like it is like 12 minutes long? Anybody? What kind of videos you watch, you tolerate 12 minutes for?
There are many reasons for.
Only if you're doing it for education or competition, right?
TED Talk or something.
Yeah, there can be many reasons.
Entertainment or education only?
Entertainment or
So the rule of thumb, if you have a video, if it exceeds 90 seconds, you're in trouble. 90 seconds is the maximum length people will tolerate. If you can't say something useful in 90 seconds about your product, about your message, yeah, you're wasting it.
Are all movie trailers less than 90 seconds?
Movie trailer is a different story, because the content is designed so beautifully that you are willing to, sit through it, right? Your videos are not designed like that. You take some cartoon or some other thing, you're spending $1,000, you're gonna get, not a great content, right? All right, any questions on the content side of things? Okay. Like I told you, every content has its own purpose. What works for bringing you to the top of the funnel may be very different than what might work to convert a lead versus something that will make you into a customer, right? A success story, for example, works really well in the later stages of the sale, because misery loves company. As soon as I know, hey, you got other customers who are also buying it and have the similar problems, sure, I'll also take a chance. So this, I don't quite agree with everything they have said here. This is not my graphic, but I just wanted to bring the point to you that you need in your site, if you are going to be a conversion site, whatever content draws you in is not the one that is going to nurture you, and is not the one that is going to keep you, and not the one that is going to convert you. So you need different kinds of content depending on your product. That has to be available to the customer. And if you can figure out the customer journey as to where that customer is, then you need to figure out the right content for them at the right stage. If you don't figure that out, you will be wasting a lot of your efforts. Right? This is like this. Think of digital marketing as your salesperson. What would a good salesperson look like? After he or she has qualified you, what questions they did to qualify you, now what will they continue to tell you that you would want to know? If it's a technical product, you want to probably look at more details, and so on. Maybe a trial is required, maybe it is not required. And maybe there is a stage at which you want them to come and talk to you, or you don't want to talk to them, depending on your product price and all. So those are all the things you have to figure it out. So the selling process always used to be like this, except there was no measurement tool. Right? You had your salespeople who used to call on the phone before, but today trying to reach everybody on the phone is hard business. Previously people used to pick up their phone. How many connects do you get, Arnav? What percentage connects do you get on a phone?
I'm just trying to think of it from factory sales. Probably like out of 80 calls, you'll get 50%.
Wow. That is amazing. I've never seen more than 20% connects.
And the reason for it is...
No, but connect doesn't mean just getting their voicemail or getting to the gatekeeper.
Getting a gatekeeper.
Is it a curious?
Yeah, but how many people you actually end up talking to?
Yeah, so that is different. So the way how we run our funnel is number of dials, the number of connects, number of good conversations.
No, I am only asking, how many people do you end up talking to out of 80? Out of 100, let's say.
We will get hang-ups between...
Yeah. How many do you end up talking
I'd say,
to?
a good conversation will be 10 out of 80.
That's still pretty good, okay? The average good conversations are less than 5%. No matter how good a database you have. And the conversions are less than 1% on a dial. On an email, it's no different. Which is why we're going to talk about, if you touch a customer only one way, you're doing it wrong. So we'll talk about that in a little bit later.
If you have a more targeted audience, then your numbers are different.
Yes, but most people don't. As a startup, you're not going to have targeted customers in the sense that you don't know their names and numbers and all that. You only know in the beginning because they're your friends.
Well, but like, if you have a site which is completely anybody and everybody, then obviously you'll get very low
Right.
conversions. But if you know, hey, this is for this kind of audience, you will get much higher conversion.
Absolutely. You will get better conversion than somebody who's just shooting in the dark. But if your product, what you're selling, 10 other people are selling the same thing, even though you're very specialized, doesn't mean you're going to get a conversion. Right? So it depends on what you did with your product research. How good were you in your product research that your messages, follow-on messages will play better. But remember, what your early customers do is not what the second level customers are going to do. What worked for your first 50, 100 customers is not going to work for your next 1,000 customers necessarily. As your markets continue to expand, now your message has to expand and everything else, and you are not going to get the same conversion percent. That's just the law of numbers. So I think one key concept that I wanted you to understand today, which I think Soumya is going to talk a lot about, is a landing page. Does everybody know what a landing page is? Yeah?
Home page.
Landing page is not a home page.
Homepage can be landing.
No, biggest mistake of marketing. Home page should not be landing page.
Why so?
What's the purpose of a landing page? You want somebody to do something, right? You're asking them you're telling them
So
something.
you made a one-page website, that is your homepage, your landing.
No, if you have nothing else to sell, that's different. But most people don't have one-page websites and all that, right?
Strictly that it can't be.
Yeah, but the idea for my landing page is I told you about something. Whether the landing page is I'm going to give you a white paper or I gave you one message, and when you came there, if you sold me the kitchen sink, I'll just say, I'm not interested, I'm gone. Because your homepage is a kitchen sink, right? So I want to get that focus. That's the whole idea of a landing page. If it didn't do that focus, what I designed it for, its purpose is lead gen. Its purpose is not to get you to move like this, right?
So when you send out an email blast and you're inviting people to an event and you click on that join button, it should take you to a landing page which should talk about that event.
You got it.
Sitting on the website.
Yeah. Instead, if you bring me to TiE website where I'm lost trying to figure out how do I register, you're lost. I'm done. Most people will not even go bother to the next step. That's not a good landing page then, right? All right, let's,
I'm not sure I understood the difference.
okay.
So, take TiE registration page is a landing page?
No, so let's say I made a landing page for this session, right? Now, I can send you to two places. I can either send you to the TiE website, or I can send you to the page for this session where you can register. So which is a better destination for that landing page then? Right, so landing page is selling you about this session today.
Okay, so if you have multiple products you're selling, then you have got different landing pages.
Not even multiple products. In the same product, let's say, my product has 3 features. And I know some people come for sales, some people come for marketing, some people come from customer service. My product offers these 3 functions. Now, in my landing page, if I am focusing on sales, and I talk about all my sales feature, I don't want to send you to my homepage because my homepage talks about everything else. Instead, I want to bring you to a place where you feel comfortable. I'm only telling you about sales features, as an example.
So any page which has a specific purpose, you're calling it.
Bingo. Okay?
Probably where the user will take the action.
Yes.
It may not even be a page.
It may not even be a page. Landing page has to have a CTA, call to action. Okay? So let's just bring you back to sales process. So remember, we talked about top of the funnel, where we put a lot of effort in trying to get suspects, and then we are trying to qualify them to make it into prospects. So for top of the funnel, so we talked about all the assets that I needed. Now I need a strategy to bring you in, right? I need some tactics, because just having a website is not enough. Somebody has to discover the website. So there are various tactics. You wrote a great content, but if you didn't market your content, what good is it? Not good at all, right? We'll talk about that in a minute. Social media. You have your presence on social media. By itself, you might get some users, but you could do some effort. You will get a lot more. So, for example, on LinkedIn, what effort can you do to drive traffic to your site? Anybody?
Blog post.
And where are you going to put that blog post?
On your website.
No, you can post it, right? As a,
On your website and then link it to the.
Right, so you will write a pulse. They call it pulse. Now, some people will give everything there, the full article, but they'll have a link which will bring you there. Some people who are in the business of blog, they'll probably give you quarter of this, and then for more, they'll bring you back to their site, as an example. And so on. So the idea is just having a site doesn't do anything for you. You have to now figure out how do you market to that constituents where you put your bulletin board, right? Where you put your website, where you put your social site. You need to now make sure how do you drive the traffic from there to your destination. Now, a lot of people believe, and there is no real, I think there is some data on it, that social media sites generally don't tend to be lead gen sources. They're meant to be more if people have known about you somewhere else, they are very useful in reinforcing what they have heard. Do you know how many times you have to touch somebody before they actually know that you exist? Anybody?
3.
I was 7 or 8.
20 or more.
Yes and no. So TV people used to sell everybody that you must run your ad 5 times before they'll notice you. Why? Because they wanted to sell 5 spots. Now it used to be 3 to 4 when email was rare, relatively speaking. Today we have so much overload. It's generally said between 7 to 8 times is the minimum touch before you get noticed. I have heard as much as 11 to 13 times. So now where do you touch me? That's the other thing. And how frequently do you touch me?
On the same media or on the variety of media?
Variety of media. If you just send me 11 emails, and doesn't help because if the first one was blocked by my spam filters, every other email is going to be blocked.
Because I listen to the radio and they keep having the same advertisement again and again and again.
But now you remember it, right?
Yeah, memorized.
So that's their purpose.
Before you jump out of it.
That's their purpose. That's why they spend too much money on it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you know, people used to remember every TV ad because we used to watch ads. We were forced to watch ads. Today, fast forward, right? I mean, DVR, right? So nobody watches any ads. So don't even know what ads are there anymore, except at Super Bowl. Because the only time, you know, you watch Super Bowl is for ads now. So SEM and SEO, I think I'll leave it for Soumya to talk about it on Thursday. She's going to touch a lot on that. Let's talk about email. And so let me first talk about, so there are, have you heard of the term triple touch? Does everybody know the term triple touch? Anybody has a guess?
3 different social mediums.
No. So triple touch means when you call somebody, you reach them on LinkedIn or something, and you also send them an email. And they're all linked to each other. You don't hide the fact that you're trying to reach this person 3 times in 3 different ways. So you're trying to reach them on 3 mediums: LinkedIn, email, and phone call. Generally at the same time. Yeah, that's called triple touch.
Which one do you do? In what order is the right way to do it?
There's no right or wrong way, whatever works for you. But generally the first touch should be a triple touch. If you're doing an outbound sales effort. Now afterwards, you got to decide what kind of touch and how frequently are you going to touch this person. If you touch them more often, they'll get annoyed and they will unsubscribe. Oh, by the way, talking about unsubscribe. Do you think you can send emails? What email automation tools do you think you use to send emails? Can you send it from Google? Why can't you send it from Google? No, it's not spam.
Limits on the broadcast.
How many?
50.
No. 500 a day.
500.
500.
About 500.
Actually, you shouldn't be sending more than 500 to any address, just FYI. And there is an act called Can Spam Act. Does everybody know what Can Spam is? It's an act against spamming. If somebody reports that you are spamming them and you don't listen to them when they tell you to unsubscribe, you can be fined $1,100 per incident. And take that seriously.
Oh, if I spam somebody,
And they report, they tell you, I want to unsubscribe. I never subscribe to your list.
oh, I see.
First of all, your email has to have an unsubscribe button in it. That's the law. And an email where you don't put your address is considered bad because the person at the other end doesn't think you're genuine. Even if you have a PO box, it's okay to put that in. And then you need to give people a chance to unsubscribe. Now, like I said, so when you send your email first time through an email service, and we'll talk about email service in a minute, what happens is your domain has pretty reasonable, reputation because you haven't spoiled it yet. So as a result, the emails you send are likely to go through to the end person. Now they may not, all of you use Gmail, I'm assuming, right? Or at least know what a Gmail is, right? Gmail has those three things. Now you want to end up in the primary section, but you can control it, right? Google uncle is going to decide whether you end up in primary or you end up in promotions or what, right? So therefore you got to make sure that your email is very well written so that it doesn't smack of some spammy words. So before you send an email, you should run it against a spam filter, meaning it will tell you these words that should never be in the email title. Otherwise, it will be blocked by most companies. Like free is never a word to be put in the title.
What about newsletter?
Newsletter is okay. But my point is, people use these terms, big deal, great deal, free, today only, all that crap is generally blocked by spam filters. Your email will never get delivered. Okay? Now, as you start sending emails, your reputation only decreases. Because if you have too many bounces, or you have too many bad addresses, or too many unsubscribes, the more you have, the more your email service provider is going to delist you down and down. So your reputation of your domain is going down.
Even with the unsubscribes?
The more unsubscribes, the more it will go down. The more bounces, hard bounces, soft bounces, they'll cause your reputation to go down.
And who is controlling the reputation?
Whichever email provider you're using.
Who are using to send?
They're all supposed to use it by law. So what do they do? What should you do? I personally recommend to companies to use a domain name which is like yours, but don't spoil your main domain name with those things. So if your domain name is agile.com, use agile.io for this purposes. Because you don't want your main domain name to get corrupted and have a bad reputation.
The one that confused the user,
I
I won't confuse the user.
User doesn't know that much. The name is close enough, right? So it's not like you're choosing.
So many email programs don't show the email is just show the name.
No, not true. More and more to show it now. And
So what happens when companies like MailChimp and those are used to send emails?
no, it doesn't matter. It's the same. In fact, they are the cops. They are the ones who
You're saying
enforce
that
it.
if you have a lot of unsubscribes or bounces, then your website won't get as much promotion through Google.
No.
What are you saying?
If you have an unsubscribes and a lot of these, next time you send an email, your email will be blocked by your provider probably, and they will not even deliver your email. If your reputation is so bad, they'll not deliver your emails at all for a while. They'll blacklist your domain.
So what, if you are using MailChimp, for example, for sending you emails and then lot of bounces happen, then MailChimp will lower your brand's equity or whatever you call domain names. But on the other side, the recipient's email service provider, are they also making a note of you? Are they getting in touch with MailChimp and then finding out from MailChimp whether this domain is using many unauthentic?
Not really, not quite the same way.
Only up to your damage is limited only up to the service you are using.
No, so every large corporate site has a different way to block you if you're not authorized, right? So
Now, let's take this particular example. So MailChimp is there. MailChimp, you send 1,000 mails. Out of that, say 30 or 40 were unsubscribed or something happened. They were not.
no, but let's say your domain is blocked by a company A you sent it to.
Okay.
So that's a bounce that MailChimp will know.
Yes, MailChimp will.
So MailChimp reduce your reputation again.
That is fine. Okay. So what else? How much more damage it does? Only MailChimp is reducing your.
No, but if you go to, let's say now you don't like MailChimp, you go to SendGrid. SendGrid also knows that your reputation of this domain is such.
How does it send a mail?
If you used your own domain name, they know it. They all share this data.
They share the data. Okay.
So
You will in fact get a call from them also to explain, saying, hey, this was not an opt-in list. They know that you're not sending all opt-in lists, but they'll pretend that, and you will also pretend that it was an opt-in list, right? So they're trying to figure it out. Oh, really? No, I got an opt-in list. Then they'll say, show me a proof. So this is one thing I would say is never send a bulk email in 25,000 to strangers. That's the worst mistake you can do. If you're going to send bulk email to strangers, don't send more than 400 or 500 of them. And I'll tell you why. For multiple reasons. First and foremost, any email you decide to send, you should test it. And what I call A/B testing. So you're going to test your email. What's the first thing you're going to test it for? Anybody? Okay. Now I'm ready to send. I have done all the spam filtering tests and all that because those I can do offline. Now I'm ready to send an email. What do I want to test about my email first?
Content,
How does it look when it is delivered?
subject line, content, for many things you do.
No. What causes my email to be opened? Subject line. If my subject line is bad, I'm done. So always test 2 subject lines for your content. So send 50 emails with one subject, 50 with the other one. See which one causes more opens. Which one has a higher percentage of opens. If they're both almost equal, next time do 50-50 also. But if one is 80, the other is 20, drop the 21. Go to the 81 for next time. What's the next thing I want to test in my email?
Can you view the mobile device?
That you have to do first before you even send it.
It loads all the images and everything, right? So
You have to do all that before you send it. I'm saying you've sent it. Somebody opened it. What's the next thing you want in an email?
Message, content.
2 clicks.
Yeah, right. You have a call to action in your email, right?
yeah.
This is not a charity. You're doing it for a call to action. The call to action might be register for a website, register for my domain, or give me your email address, or buy something from me, which is a bad one, but let's assume you can do that, or get a white paper, or just click on this link. So if you can't measure that part, whether the click-through occurred or not, and then if this user came in to your site and what else did this user do? Waste of money. You wasted all this money for nothing because you can't measure it. You want to be able to know, did they come to the site you intended to? Did they come, did they engage or not? How long did they stay on your site? And MailChimp can't do that. None of the mail programs will do it for you. They only leave the control unto the point they'll tell you how many emails opened, how many closed, that's it. So you need some better marketing automation program that will allow you to do all that. Now, there are a lot of sales automation programs that do that. Now, you can spend a lot of money. Marketo was one example we saw, but it is expensive. And more than expensive, it is very difficult to learn. But there are a lot of small, low-end products which will do all-in-one packages. I'm an advisor to one of the companies like that called Agile CRM. They do services, support, marketing automation, all of that built in. Then there are many other companies like that. Zoho has something similar. Salesforce has the Salesforce and then Pardot you have to buy. You have more money, you go to HubSpot. So there are many, many products. In the marketing technology today, does anybody know how many companies exist?
4,000.
Huh?
4,000.
Higher.
5,000.
5,150 as of yesterday. And there were less than 3,000 last year. If there is a field that is the most confusing and the fastest growing, it's marketing tech. Even people in marketing can't keep up with what the hell is going on, because it's not humanly possible. You can go to MarTech, there is a big chart there. So anyway, does everybody understand? So next thing I want to test is my email body really doing its purpose or not? After I've tested my subject line, I know which one works. I'm now going to give 2 different bodies. And I'm going to test that. See which one converts better. Because my conversion is click-through rate. And then if I had a good marketing automation program, I will actually be able to track when this person comes into my site, how much time do they really spend?
So if you're writing up these lists between 400 and 500, how do you decide which 400 or 500 get the list each time? I mean,
well, you have to assume the probability and randomness, right? There is no other way you know. Unless and until you have your list very verticalized, right? Like you have, these are all the beauticians, these are all the statisticians, and these are all this, then you will test amongst portion of those and then send them the message, right? But if you have a generic list, which is 25,000 names, which are kind of similar to what your target customer is, now you need to say, you know what, I am not going to send 25,000 anyway. I'm going to send 100 to this, 100 to this, figure out what message works. Now I know what my message works. Now I'll repeat that message for next 5 days, 500 each, and see what the result is. But if my result is now not what was on my sample, I better change again. So the first thing you want to know is open rates. The next thing you want to know is click-through rate.
what are good rates?
Hmm?
I mean, they give you, right? This is
Open
that.
rates depends on who you are. If I know you or not. If I know you, for example, for TiE, what's the open rate you get? About 20%, right? So that's a known audience. They're getting my newsletter. They already know me. It's an opt-in list.
No, it's 20% for people that is a larger group, but if it's charter members or members, it's a higher percent, like 70%. If it's a known audience, it's higher.
Yeah.
Unknown audience.
So average open rates are but between 15 to 20% if you are doing a strange list. But click-through rates are no more than 5 to 6. If you're doing 5 to 6 click-through, you're doing really well. And conversions are usually 1. Okay?
But many times the conversion doesn't happen right then, but then people kind of register and register and register.
No, but you have to decide what is conversion. Conversion doesn't mean sale. My conversion, maybe you went and visited page A. That's a conversion for me.
Right,
So set your goal.
right.
Your customer may not buy before coming 100 times to your site. So you want to make sure, what does your customer do first time? So the way to do is, like, let's say I sent an email to 50 people. 100 people, let's say. And 5 of them came and clicked something on my site, right? Now, they opened my email, so I'm going to give them a score of 5, let's say. As soon as they open my email, I add a 5 score to this particular customer. Now, if they click on my site, which is more important to me, I may decide that click is important and it is worth 5 points or 10 points. Now, if they come in and visit my page A, B, and C after that, or download a white paper, I may give it some points. Now, if they come and visit my pricing page, because everybody of my customer before buying always visits a pricing page, I may give them another 5 points for coming and visiting my pricing page. I have not touched this customer yet. Arnav, this is for you, as to how to reduce your cost. And now I know that this customer is engaged because he even came in and registered for my webinar. So now I'm looking at 5 customers. One of them only did 1 action. The other one did 3 actions. Somebody did 5 actions. So the guy with the score of 25 is going to be the one that my salesperson is going to call. And we call that an MQL, Marketing Qualified Lead, where I don't actually touch the person on the phone necessarily. Some companies do, but mainly I don't touch the person on the phone. I basically touch them electronically as many times, and I look at what actions do they take, and I give them a score. And some companies might say, okay, I'm only going to touch someone, I'm going to consider them MQL only if they have a score of 50. And their criteria might be, this page is worth 10, this click-through worth is 10, whatever it is. So you got to decide your own criteria for your sales, which you're going to learn over time what works. But if you touch somebody cold very first time, you may not get any result. But if this person has engaged with you 4, 5, 6 times, now if you call them, the probability of converting them is a lot higher. So that lead which you qualify for that is what we call an MQL, Marketing Qualified Lead. And then we'll talk about Sales Qualified Lead, which is different. Okay? So there is a triple touch, double touch, number of times you touch, how often do you touch, you have to design that. You don't leave that to chance. So you sit down, you decide your strategy, knowing how your customers convert, how your customers are expected to go in a sales cycle. Now you may not get it right the first time, so you'll experiment and change. And once you know your customer's journey or prospect's journey to conversion, now you can do a better job. So we recommend you build your customer personas, right? Because if your one possible customer is a small to medium-sized customer, while somebody is a large enterprise customer, they don't go through the same process of buying the product. So I need to have a different persona and figure out what clicks for this person versus what clicks for the other person. So I need to take them through those paths. I need to design those paths for my system and how I engage with them. And there are customers you will decide, okay, you know what? They're not ready to buy from me. I need to just nurture them. Meaning I'm going to put them on some constant email list, but I'm not going to spam them every day. I'll send them once a month maybe. Or I know that they really love the content on sales. I'm going to send them content on sales. While somebody else loves the content on support, so I'll send them only content related to support. So that's called nurturing for a longer term. Why? Because one day they may actually be ready to buy. And if you're out of their mind, you're out of that sale.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. I'm not going to spend any time on PR and reviews. But if you don't know PR, get a professional. But even if you get a professional, if your message is not clear, it's called garbage in, garbage out. So you still have to learn how to manage your PR person well. Even though there'll be a lot of help because they'll tell you what works, but don't expect magic. Reviews it's amazing to me as to how many places your customers will go and review your product without you asking. And mainly they'll give you negative reviews because only the guy who is pissed gives a review. The one who is happy doesn't give a review unless you bribe them. That's just a fact. So if you want your reviews to look good in those public sites, you better have somebody in your team who is actually going to go to these users who get pissed and report negative and talk to them, make them feel good, and have them change their reviews. And reward your customer for doing a review. Here's a Starbucks gift card or Amazon gift card if you give me a review. I know these are not considered legal and all that in one sense, but that's how the world works. Nobody in the business does a review unless you give them some incentive. Once in a while, somebody really loves you to death, but that doesn't happen that often. Not in the B2B business. B2C is different. Okay?
How do people get bad reviews off without talking to people? Because I've noticed some people will move some reviews like get moved. How does that happen?
Get moved meaning?
Get almost moved away, like they kind of just delete them.
Because they paid the company that actually has the reviews.
So they pay.
It's like you can pay Yelp and you can be repositioned at some level, even though not quite in that simpler term that I put it, but you know, the end result is that. So, but this happens a lot with, if there's a site like Capterra, G2 Crowd, so on and so forth. How do they make money? They make money from vendors. They don't make money from customers. They don't make money from you to look at the reviews. So vendors have to pay. So whoever pays is obviously going to be in a different position than the one who doesn't pay. Right? These are new mafias of the industry. So you got to pay your, keep. Trade shows. Very difficult to measure in direct terms, but more and more tools are coming in where you can measure your investment in trade shows and what it does. A lot of time trade shows are good for, unless it's a very, very specific vertical industry, trade shows are good for building position, but not necessarily for doing sale. But if your product is just say on Salesforce and you happen to go in the startup pavilion of Salesforce, you might get some good leads out of that, as an example. So you got to make that decision, what works for you. Yeah?
What is the inflection point where a company should consider trade shows?
I know of companies that actually start with trade shows only, right? Because they know exactly their audience and they know they're going to get it at that trade show, right? If I'm building a product that only works with Salesforce, is a Salesforce add-on, I have no choice. I have to go to force.com, right? But it is going to cost me a minimum of 10K. Plus people, so 15K. Now I need to do my math. For 15K, how many leads do I expect here, and versus how much can I do 15K online and get my business? That's just a math you have to do.
Never go to the generic market. Go to the specific market. Let's say you're an SAP partner or Salesforce partner. If you are targeting a specific industry, there the partnership already gives you leverage.
Yeah.
There is no selling much involved. They straight away come to you, there is a need, and you can sell. If you go to the generic market, it's tough, you don't get the ROI back.
Yeah.
So
Well said.
it's the same thing in a different.
Yeah. Okay, this is a very complex chart. And interestingly so, I wanted you to understand that SEO is complex. There are on-page, there is off-page, and this is what Soumya is going to touch more on in her talk on Thursday. And if she doesn't, you can bug her. But you have to understand what an on-page SEO is, what the off-page SEO is, how do you build your reputation, and so on. So all of this is something that she'll cover. But some facts you should know in the ad business, the two companies that do 80% or 60% of their market, which one are those two? Google and
Facebook.
Exactly, Google and Facebook. But you can advertise outside of Google and Facebook too. There are other places as well. By the way, who's number 3?
LinkedIn.
Huh?
LinkedIn.
Not even close. Huh?
Amazon, YouTube.
Not even close. Not even close.
Twitter doesn't.
Huh?
Twitter.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it's Verizon now
Verizon, yeah.
because they combined the AOL and the Yahoo property into one, and that became the number 3 network. Okay? Now, something to understand is, as you know, that Google ads are done on a bid basis. But if you have the highest bid, doesn't mean you are going to get it. So Google decides how your ad will be shown is max bid price times your quality score. That is what decides your ad rank. So you may have spent $5 on an ad, and you may be on 4th ad because your quality score is 1. But somebody else only spent $1, but their quality score is 5. I mean, it may not happen that way, but just to kind of give you the sense. So they might be number 1. Now, how does your quality score improve and all that? You got to ask Samia that on Thursday. Okay? So I think we talked about the content strategy. You're going to build the content, create, obviously, and focus on your audience. You're going to publish. The normal thing you want to do is publish on your site. That doesn't do you any good. If you have no traffic, you publish content only on your site, doesn't do anything. So you need to figure out where else can you submit your content to. There are lots of free sites which will accept the content if it is a good content. You can try those. You can figure out what the influencers are in the business, the bloggers and others. You can convince them to put the content in. And you can promote it on social media. These days, people also put their content on Medium, which seems to be doing really well. Medium, medium.com. My personal experience was Medium is now very noisy. I find LinkedIn does better for me than Medium does, but everybody's going to have their own individual experience. But the point is, don't just put the content on your site because it doesn't give you the value and the leverage. So this is like one way to decide. So I told you that you have to touch a customer 11 times, right? Now it's not possible for us to do that 11 touches easily. So we need technology. We need a way to be able to figure out what's the least cost way for me to do this. So I need to automate. So most marketing and sales automation products have like a flow chart. You can decide, okay, I'm going to send an email first. And if this person visited my URL, then yes, I will add the lead score of 10 to them. If they did well, I'll wait for 2 days and then I'll send them a tweet, for example. Or if they said no, and the condition is blah, if they say no, I will add a note. If they say yes, I'll add a tag. So you need to design the whole cadence of your sales. So digital marketing is not about the traditional marketing. It's about figuring it out, how do I take my customer from the top of the funnel to doing a sale. Now, if it's a higher price product, my goal is to, as a marketing department, to bring an MQL, the marketing qualified lead, that I want to give it to my sales department. Then they may decide that they want to call them. And they have what they call SDRs, which is sales development representative, whose job it is to qualify these leads to the next stage, whereby a more expensive account manager will actually take that call. Now in a startup, you are all of these, right? None of these roles exist. You are everybody. But the job of a founder or the first few executives is to figure out how is your sales going to work? What is the message that opens the door? What is the message that helps you close the door? If you start hiring salespeople before their time, you will waste too much money. If you don't know as a founder how to sell your product, at least you haven't done 1 or 2 sales, you're going to get a wrong salesperson and you will not succeed. Most salespeople require you to tell them what is the process, What is the message? How did it work? What opened the door? What closes the door? What kind of customer is your target? So if you have never done any sale and you start hiring an expensive salesperson, you will just be paying more money with no output whatsoever. There are some people who know how to work in startup environments and deal with it, and they can figure all this out. But an average salesperson is really bad at it, especially the ones that works in big companies, because they're used to process. They're not in the process of thinking. They're not allowed to think the same way. So you want somebody who knows how to design this process for you, but you don't hire them too early, otherwise you will waste money. Okay? Okay, I think she's going to cover a lot about Google Analytics. But if you are in digital marketing and you don't know Google Analytics, you will never make it. This is like one of those tools without which, you can be a mechanic. So that's like a required tool. Now this tool can do magic and you can spend years learning it. You can customize it to hilt. But after a certain basic point, it becomes so complex that there is an industry of 5,000 other tools, out of which probably 500 of them do exactly what Google Analytics does, but they just allow you to do it better or simpler. Not better, but simpler. And so that's why people use those tools sometimes, right? But there are a few things you have to start watching. So if you are a CEO of a startup and your business depends on the web, which I'm assuming it does in one form or another, today's every business does, you better be asking your analytics report almost every day from your marketing person, or you should be able to go and do it, look at it yourself. Now, especially when you launch a new campaign, you really want to know, right? So this one says to me that my organic search, direct, referral, social, email, and other. Does anybody know what organic search is? What is the organic search traffic? Yeah.
Is it through the Google search? They search
Right.
the keyword
That means
and
somebody searched a keyword which brought them to the site. Now, a lot of times it is your own name, but that's different, right? And the next one is direct. So what is direct?
People type the domain name on the.
Yeah, or it was already saved in there, somewhere, and they just did that, right? Usually companies tend to get a direct traffic anywhere from 40 to 60% when you start to become somebody. And then the next one is referral. Does anyone know what referral traffic is?
comes from another site, which is the brand.
So, for example, you did a press announcement, you got some articles written, and they have a link to you. That will bring you traffic. You did a partnership deal with somebody, or your software became compatible with somebody else's software. You are on their website, will bring you traffic. Now, for referral traffic, you want to get the referral from companies that are bigger than you, that are more well-known than you, because that will give you credibility. That'll give you more traffic too, because somebody who is much smaller than you has less traffic to start with. So that's why you need to figure out your product probably has, compatibility with either Google or Microsoft or Apple or any one of these ecosystems that you're compatible with at some form, or Salesforce, and you want to figure out a way as to how do you get a link from that site. So most of these sites have marketplaces where you can get your product listed and so on, and you should take advantage of those freebies because they are also very highly qualified leads, right? So for example, let's say, you're doing a CRM product. Now you could be compatible with a telephony system from, say, Twilio or RingCentral. You could be compatible with the Microsoft Office 365 or Google G Suite. you could be compatible with some other products. So now the more traffic you bring from all of those to your site, that means that customer already has bought that product and now is looking for a solution that works with it. And so therefore, it's a better qualified person most of the time. Now you can also buy referral traffic or sell referral traffic, but we won't get into that. That's the affiliate marketing side of things. And then social is where you're getting the traffic from, wherever your social presence is. And then email. You can also, like I said, in Google, you can track your email traffic as well. Okay. And then, Google gives you both the acquisition, all traffic, AdWords. It tells you how much, what's the behavior, and so on, right? So we won't go into that. But the part here that I want you to understand it is, this particular thing was set up to know the conversion. So they have their goal, which is a conversion. And so they are tracking the conversion from every source. And so their conversion has been set in the Google Analytics. So you may have one conversion, you may have 7 or 8 conversions, whatever is important to you. So you can set those all in Google Analytics and you can track them that way. Okay? And you will hear a term bounce rate. Does everybody know what bounce rate is?
Somebody comes and leaves.
Yeah. Okay.
What does that actually mean? Because they're eventually going to leave, right? So what is bouncing?
So it's usually bouncing means they came to your site and left immediately.
As in they didn't click another page within a certain amount of time?
That's right.
So isn't that mostly bots?
Not no. Every human being does the same thing.
No.
We are like bots.
But this thing reports mostly everything, right?
Yeah.
So 80% of the traffic most likely is bots.
In the beginning, not later. Only in the beginning because you have no other visitors. As you grow, no, bots are not that significant. So this is just telling you, you can look at page views, unique page views, average time on the page, bounce rate, and percentage that exit from that particular page.
Is that page or site?
This one is for the site, but you could have it each individual page. So you can know where is it that people exit from your site most.
What is a good average time on site?
It depends. There is no one rule, right? If I'm a site which is selling information, it could be 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But if I'm selling some widget and that's all I do, I don't want you to stay any more than 2-3 minutes, right? So it kind of varies. So you have to look at your industry. So what you can do is you can go to similarweb.com and you can Google you can put in URL of any company that is in your business and you will know what their numbers are. SimilarWeb. There are many sites like that. So SimilarWeb is one of them that I go to. Remember, in the digital marketing industry, nothing is hidden. Google knows everything, and so do everyone else. So this is no secret. There are no secrets. Okay, what's in your marketing toolbox? This one is very complicated things. I didn't want you to read any of them. But the one I wanted you to know is, because I told you there are 5,000 plus tools to choose from. And they all do something different. But one tool that you have to know is Google Analytics is a must. Some kind of a CRM / marketing automation tool is required to do bare minimum stuff. And then if you're going to do SEO, you will have tools for SEO. If you're going to, like SEO Moz is one big tool for SEO. And if you're doing WordPress, WordPress has some SEO tools that you can put in it directly while you're writing your content. So there's the whole long list of them, okay? So the idea is that there is a whole list of tools and you're going to do it based on the buyer journey and you're going to pick the right tool.
So this is like a landscape.
This is like all the players in this little segment that are shown. But nobody can tell me that. So everybody's marketing stack tends to be a little different, because marketing guys want to try everything, and something works for them for one function, they don't try to go look more into it, but instead buy another tool to do something else. So pretty soon you have a hodgepodge of 50 to 60 tools in a company, and that's pretty standard. Now you can reduce them, but you have to know about the tool and how well it does for you. And there's no hard and fast rule I can tell you will make you an expert. Soumya will tell you the tools that she uses for SEO and SCM, but again, one tool that everybody will agree on for an online is Google Analytics. Now remember, in the world of digital marketing, you cannot do one thing and not have an integrated approach. So when you do your content, for example, you are thinking, okay, would this content make sense to send for email? Would this content, like I did a white paper, would that content be good for me to give it as a, way on my, Google ad, for example? Or this content I did, is it really done for a proper keywords or not? So my point is, you cannot do one thing disjointed from the other. There was a time when SEO, SCM, all those were very different individually. Not anymore. If you really want to do marketing right, you got to start and integrate all of these approaches together as a strategy. So they have to fit within each other, because they're all dependent on each other. Otherwise, you'll spend too much money and not get the result. The definition of marketing was do it economically, and you will not, because there's just too many of them. So that's something you have to worry about. Here are some terms. I think you guys know most of them, but we'll just do a quick one before we close. Everybody knows website bounce rate and email bounce rate. You know what KPIs are?
Key performance indicators.
Right. So you better have a key performance indicator for what is it that you want your sales guy to do, what is it that you want your marketing guy to do, and what you want from your sales VP and your marketing VP, and what you want your content to do. All of these need to have a KPI. You need to be able to track them, but you can only track them if you say, what is it that I expect from it, right? So when I do a piece of content, I want to put a KPI on that content too in my mind, right? It is going to give me, this kind of an engagement, or how many page views will this have and all that. You should have some idea, right? PPC, pay per click, right? Which is also called AdWords in Google. MRR, ARR. So what's the difference?
Annual, they pay prepaid.
Yeah, technically you can call it an ARR if you prepay them for a year. But if you ask, my friend Arnav at the back, he'll put his MRR multiply by 12 and call it an ARR too, which he's right. Even though he has no record that whether the customer is going to stay with him or not, but he'll say it.
But what about the contract? If the contract is for 3 years, 2 years?
Then you have an ARR, right? NPS? Net Promoter Score, which is basically your customer service measurement in a way. ASP? Average sales price. It used to be in the other business, but not in the marketing. What is, this should be CAN spam, not CN spam. I think I told you what CAN spam is, right? CPM. What is CPM? Huh? Nope. The media always used to be bought, and even today, 90% of the media is bought on a CPM basis. Cost per thousand. 1,000 is millennium or whatever, some French word. So basically cost per thousand. So per 1,000 views on YouTube, worth whatever CPM of $40. That means you'll get 1,000 views for $40, as an example. Okay? CPC. Cost per click. CPL. Cost per lead. So marketing guys have invented so much of this stuff to confuse everybody else, to keep them out. These TLAs, which are the same thing, it's very easy to figure it out. But it is to keep all the guys out, you invent new terms. So we did a lot of those terms, right? CPA. Not CPA, the accounting one. What is CPA?
Cost per acquisition.
You got it. CTA. Call to action. If you did any document of any kind and there is no call to action, the document is not complete. No email is complete without a call to action. No web page is complete without a call to action. Okay? Where are we? CTR? Come on. Click-through rate. CAC? Customer acquisition cost. CLV or LTV? Lifetime value of a customer. Okay. Now, with this, in closing, traditional marketing, wide scope, difficult to measure, and high cost, which is where marketers got the bad name. Today's world, digital world is precise audience targeting, easy to measure, and full cost control. But in summary, I will still say, marketing still starts with the customer. And don't spend a dime unless you can track it. Not like the yesterday's marketing guys. Today's marketing guys don't spend a dime unless they can track it. Thank you. Do we have time for any questions? I don't know. Oh boy, 9:14, huh?
No, let me just pass on the mic so that we
Okay,
can.
we'll take a couple of questions. Sorry?
Webinars, where does it fit?
Webinar is part of, sort of the later part of bringing you into the funnel. Once you are in the funnel, it works better. More complicated the product, the better the webinars work. And also, contrary to popular thinking, most webinars are not watched live. People watch more webinars after they are actually done than when they are being delivered.
So one thing I found which seems to be pretty effective is these really short YouTube videos.
Yes. But if you only post it on YouTube on your site, YouTube will get the rest 5.
But from a communicating a product perspective, I'm not talking about.
Yeah. I'm saying bringing traffic from YouTube to you is fine, but don't give your traffic to YouTube.
Yeah, webinar doesn't generate really traffic.
Yeah, it does. It does if you do it right. Definitely does. Yes, what else? Any other question?
So you mentioned about that marketer slide.
Yeah.
Product for any company insights. Right? I want to select the small, mid, and less than big clients. So what's your
You better get your marketing right, your positioning right. Nobody can tell me that they're ready to sell to all these right away. Salesforce went to enterprise after first 5 years of selling to SMB. So who are you?
So I
Don't buy it.
I should stop. I have to pick one market.
Figure out where you're going to succeed first.
Then
You can expand later. There are a lot of opportunities. The hardest part is to build your first $1 million in sales. The next harder part is to build your next $10 million in sales. If you survive that long, it gets it easier and easier. That's why you have to be very narrow in the beginning. You become broad later. Don't start with broad. If you start with broad, you'll never go anywhere. All right. Thank you, guys.